Hi, this is 20s Convos with Wole and Toby, a conversation between two age-old friends about life, the world, and everything in between. On this week's episode, we spoke about being young, being black, and being financially literate. At the risk of making a hasty generalization, I think it's safe to say that as 20-something year olds, financial literacy isn't something that regularly pops up in our conversations. Now, some of us might be willing to admit that we grew up watching adults in our lives make questionable financial decisions and maybe picked up a lot of bad habits along the way. So Wole and I decided to have a conversation about it. So we kicked off with trying to understand who is responsible for your financial literacy. Your school, your bank, your parents, or is it a personal thing?
The idea of financial literacy, who's responsible for it? Is it
Mm.
you as a person, or should it be the school education, or should it be, more of like the financial bodies, the banks, insurance, or the government? So what do you
Yeah.
think? Like, who's responsible for your own financial literacy?
Um, so that's an interesting question, to be honest. And I'll answer it in two parts. I think the first part is that, um, as very young people, right? If you're in like primary school or something, I think you can't know for yourself that you should be financially educated, right? So from that point, I think the schools, the institutions that are in place, have a responsibility to begin to introduce those topics. But if that doesn't happen, and you find yourself as a young adult and you've not really had any financial sort of like education or training, I think it then becomes your responsibility because it's personal for you at that point. So two parts. First part, like early on, if possible, institutions definitely should include some kind of financial literacy training
But
early on.
how?
How?
It,
Good question. I think um
because it's everyone has something to gain, right? And everyone has something to lose. So if you say institution,
yeah.
they should teach us how to, understand our finances better. How? So let's just say,
Yeah.
bank example, how?
So I think let me take maybe not primary school. That's a bit extreme. Let's take secondary school for example. In economics, right? I remember my economics classes, and it sort of was centered around like just business, demand and supply, things
Yeah,
like that. I think a good way to like make I've made that better was to make personal finances, a point of it as well. I think the only thing they mentioned about personal finances was, when you're working for someone, you get an income, and yeah, that's the money you
yeah,
use to buy
yeah,
and to purchase, right? And that's just the surface, right? So I think what was stopping them, or what's stopping curriculums to include personal finance management and things like that from early on, right? Just tell people, what's the savings culture, what do you do when after you save, do you invest after, what are the different investment options? You don't like just introduce the topics at the
yeah,
very least, because I'm thinking I didn't take it. Okay, I took economics from SS1 to SS3 as well, but even in that, like, it was more about micro and macroeconomics, right? Understanding,
yeah.
and which is important, but I think being silent on personal finance was probably like a missed opportunity in my opinion. But yeah, that's how I think we could have
Yeah.
introduced
I
it.
mean, I mean, you raise good points. I think for me, yeah, I think it's tricky because if you speak about because you mentioned the banks, for example,
Yeah.
the bank is trying to make money, right? So it's not the bank's benefit to make you um very aware to the point where you don't need them anymore for wealth empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Because a bank is telling you, well, put your money in investments rather than savings. Your money's going out of their pockets, isn't it?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So
Fair
so
enough.
so so I think in that case I can see why that might be tricky for banks particularly. But like you said,
Yeah.
school, yeah, I think definitely school should include some form of financial literacy for students, particularly because um that's the point where it gets ingrained into your mind as a young
Mm.
adult,
Yeah.
preteens, teenager, and things like that. But then again, the school system has always been very, very archaic. It, even though I'm doing a PhD myself, I know how academia can be slow to change.
Mm.
And the
Mm.
curriculum, if you want to change curriculum, then you must
It
be,
takes a problem. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think that's a very tricky one. But
Ultimately, you're responsible for your financial literacy. Now, some schools and institutions might be forward thinking enough to include this in their curriculum, but if that's not your story, then you owe it to yourself to bring yourself up to speed. Next up, we spoke about being African and the possible relationship between our culture and our immature credit systems, when compared with the West. Wole argued that as Africans, there's a general distrust in institutions when it comes to matters relating to money, and that might contribute to why we have not seen the industry mature as quick on this side of the continent. I, on the other hand, had a different perspective. Take a look.
So honestly, like I see the points, right? But why I would slightly disagree is that if you think about it, although there isn't like institutionalized borrowing in terms of like credit, access to credits in Africa, people borrow within their networks already for weird purposes. Like, and if you think about mobile lending that I brought up earlier, looking at how fast, mobile lending has gone up in certain markets that have access to it, that sort of like questions the narrative that Africans don't like to borrow, right? So obviously we don't trust people with money, but when it comes to credit is someone giving you money. So it's kind of like, yeah, free money, basically. That's how people think about it. So I wouldn't completely agree that culture will stop us from borrowing, because I think once it's made accessible, people tend to jump on it pretty fast.
Wole went on to share insights from a report he read about Black Americans making use of borrowing as a financial tool as opposed to the credit industry. However, we both agree that this might be a matter of accessibility rather than culture. Moving on, we dove into false myths about money while growing up.
I think I'll say the concept of renting versus buying, right? Like, I think everybody's so quick to jump on the you need to own your own shit. Like, oh my god, so yeah, you need to. And I agree, but the thing about it is that it's not a blanket statement you can throw on anything. I think in the final analysis of things, you need to find out the underlying principles of whatever it is that you're trying to own or rent, and see if you discount this into 10 years into the future, 20 years into the future, is it cheaper to rent or is it cheaper to buy? Like, people just assume that buying is always the best solution, and I don't think that's true. Like, personally, I'm not a fan of buying certain things. We'll get to that, but generally, I think myths about buying versus renting, where buying is always better. I think that's a myth, number one. Second one,
that is very well, honest.
Yeah. I think second one, and I'll let you talk about your myths as well, is that a lot of people know this and a lot of people don't know this, but I think some of the things that attitudes that our parents and adults around us passed across is once there was a rise in income, cost of living and the life that they live rose with it as well. And I think that definitely like subtly sends a message across, right? When it comes to income. Something our parents subtly practice is, whenever there was an inflow of cash into the family, right, certain expenses went up. Like, we had a new TV, we did this, and that's not bad. It's really not bad. But I think like there's a subtle message that gets passed across when every time extra money comes in, something new also comes in as well. Yeah. She gets right. So I think that's another, I get not myth, but just bad practice that I've seen.
The main idea here is that it's a much better strategy to keep your lifestyle in check and not inflate it as your income rises. If you do this diligently, then in 5 to 10 years, you'll most likely be more financially secure and be able to change your lifestyle comfortably at this point. It's all about delayed gratification, people. Next up, I asked Wole if he had been taught about money growing up.
I think it was mainly, I would say, just values on money, not particularly how, or just values on money. I think from my folks particularly, I think I learned independence very, very early. The idea of making money and the value of what you spend money on, needs versus wants. That particular concept of value of money, needs versus want, I think I learned that pretty early because if you remember growing up, when we had secondary school to university, I was never the kind of person who would go beyond what we actually do, right? And sometimes there's times where obviously you buy the occasional shoes in secondary school, or maybe the phone, the laptop, whatever it is, but deep down that okay, if I get this thing, I might drink Gary later, or whatever. But I think I'm glad that I wasn't that person as much as I could have been because my parents gave me, maybe not deliberately, but but maybe realize, this is what it's a need, and this is what it's a want with your money. So that's very, very useful.
It sounds so simple, but it's a little alarming that most of our generation tends to treat needs and wants as the exact same thing when it comes to money, but it doesn't work that way. We changed focus a bit and talked about investments and debt.
Yeah.
What would you consider investment?
Something that puts money in your pockets, like plain and simple. Like something that you spend money on that has returns, just plain and simple. No questions asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and flip side of that, what do you think about debt?
In the comments, someone put like borrowing at debt is bad outright. I disagree. I feel like there's good debt and there's bad debt. And to be honest, debt is really just leverage, right? If you remember the physics example from school about fulcrum and leverage, right?
I don't
Leverage
remember,
allows
man.
you to raise something beyond leverage allows you to raise something beyond your own individual strength, right? And so like debt can do that for you. The question now is, what are you raising with it? Like, what are you trying to lift with the debt, right? Look, the whole economy runs on debt, right? And so now the question is, how are you now utilizing that debt? Are you using it to fund things that are liabilities, or are you using it to fund things that are assets?
Like you said, pretty much what you said, there's good debt, there's bad debt. I think sometimes it depends on your class in society, and
Mm,
thankfully some of us have privilege, and sadly some of us don't. For some people, there's debt is just life-saving debt. There's no good or bad about it. I
mm,
just gotta get this. I gotta be in debt to survive, right?
mm,
But we're not in that category, thankfully for that. In
mm.
my own category, like you said, there's good and bad debt, right? And shout out to one of my friends, Alex Thomas. He gave me this in a nutshell. He said, anything that you're in debt for, that is depreciating the minute you get it, is definitely bad debt.
Mm,
You know, so
mm, mm.
anything you buy and you borrow and you haven't paid for, and the value is going down for it while your your your
You
your
have
your,
it.
your
Yeah.
duration is still
Mm.
is bad debt. And anything that the value is either is going up as you have it and you haven't paid for it is good debt. So, e.g., bad debt vehicle. Simple as that.
Number one. Number one. Number one.
Good debt,
No.
a good debt is a house, right? Easy peasy. But the tricky part of
Wait,
it
hold on,
is
hold on. Yeah, okay, go on.
the tricky part of it is there's context.
On this point you've made, right? So I'll say two things here. In terms of the house one, I think borrowing to get a personal house, I'll still classify it as something that depreciates in value once you get it, because a house comes with expenses and things like that, right? But if you're borrowing to get a house that you then rent out to get monthly payments, that technically is good debt. But speaking of like how most bad debt is easy to access and easy to like, it's things that are easy to get. For example, in Kenya, for example, when they started mobile lending, the idea was that, oh, it will help businesses that need to, purchase certain things and all of that. But they found out that like over 37% of the loans that they had were going to personal stuff, like discretionary stuff.
Yeah.
And the people that were doing these things didn't actually have the capability to meet up to monthly payments. And the weird thing about easy debt is that the interest payments are usually more. Like the easier you can get the loan,
Uh,
you can bet that the premium you're paying is definitely more.
and that is where we talk about, literacy, knowing
Mm,
knowing what is worth it and knowing what is not worth it as a financial decision. Because if you remember my first point, I said the banks have stuff to gain. Not just the banks,
yeah,
but even the micro finance guys.
lenders. Yeah.
They have stuff to gain by giving you money. It's not free of charge.
Mm,
But you as well, sometimes condition, like if you're at the bottom of that pyramid,
mm,
and that debt is your survival, then
yeah.
I can understand. I won't support that, but I can understand. But for some people, like, it is not a life changing need.
Mm,
You know,
mm,
you now
yeah.
add with your lack of proper understanding of, how to calculate your principal interest, and knowing
Yeah.
what that and knowing how that
Payments.
to what your annual salary is.
Mm,
Not good.
not good.
Not good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
again, that just goes to the point of, who's responsible, because the bank will never ever tell you that, bro, this thing you're doing, you know It's not good. The bank never give you a pay slip or a form or a document that teaches you the best way to calculate interests or
Yeah.
make investments because they want to make money off you. The bank
Mm.
never gives you tips on how to invest in stock exchange because they want you to keep their money in there.
Yeah.
So, you know, so in the end, a lot of it falls down to you as the individual, right? But then
Seeking
again,
out
it's
this
about
knowledge.
privilege, and I keep going back to that word privilege because everything starts from education. Even if you do not get taught about money in school, being in a good school gives you that exposure to knowing about how money works.
Mm.
You know, but
Mm.
you know, but not everybody will see that big picture of, well, if I buy a car today with a loan or we just finance something with a card, it's just short-term thinking.
I think Wally summarized this point really well. Bottom line is, don't borrow to purchase liabilities. Don't do it. Trust me, don't. Really, don't do it. But if you still do, make sure you understand the cost of what you're actually purchasing, both in terms of the premium on the money borrowed, as well as the maintenance fees and other costs that might come in along the way. Still on the conversation, we spoke about fast money. That huge windfall of cash that you weren't expecting. Maybe you won the lottery. Maybe grandma's will had a check in it for you. But what typically happens to cash like that?
I think it depends on whose hands it falls into, to be honest. I also think, like, if you didn't put considerable effort into getting something, your understanding of the value of it goes down. It's just like the way, life works. Like, if you've not
Mm.
put effort into something, it's easy to treat it with levity, and it takes a lot of self-control and discipline to be able to still see what you call fast money and be able to make proper financial decisions with it. So that's what I would say about it. But generally, like, I think if we're going to take a survey, look at all the lottery winners. What happens after? Like it's weird. Like, I feel like it's weird, and it feels like a very obvious thing, but it's also just very weird to me. The fact that, like, people win lotteries, and in your head you're thinking, if I won the lottery, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, and at the end of the day, like, let's not even go to lottery. Let's not go to fast money. Even footballers, of the many people
Yeah.
footballers that are making like good money, there's only a few of them that have set up separate kinds of incomes that are now like helping them, make extra money and things like that. And again, yeah, it does lend itself to the point that, if you don't work hard for something, right, and if something comes too easily, if the ratio of what you worked for to like the returns you're getting is very like disproportionate, the tendency is for that to get blown away. And yes, like Tosin just said something, like, most lottery winners have poor mentalities, because if you're playing the lottery, I don't think, except in the Hollywood movies where there's like a very financially astute person that's trying to game the lottery system to win a big amount and then do more with it, most people that play the lottery, like, the lottery, I've read it somewhere, is the poor man's tax. Like, like, they don't have accounts and things like that in banks and all of that, but it's the poor man's tax. So the guy goes to the corner with the slight dollars he's earned, and that's his own tax, right? That's honestly, that's the point. To be honest. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and obviously depends on the context, the upbringing, the surrounding, etc. I think it also links back to your first point where you said, um, the more things you buy, the more expensive you have to manage those things.
Yeah.
So, like, when you get fast money, people tend to buy the first big things
Yeah.
from money, which is either a car, a very big car, house, or just the next best things to show that, okay, I've made, right, and those
Mm.
things obviously come with maintenance,
Yeah.
right? So that's like half of it. The wisdom that you gain in managing to gain that kind of money, you don't have, because
Mm.
if it will take you
Mm.
like 10 years to make that kind of money made in one night, right? And you get in that one night, you don't have that wisdom to help you make it,
To make. Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
again, the, the good point you raised also the case of footballers,
Mm.
because some of them earn money in stages,
Yeah.
right? Get to the top and they end up broke still,
Yeah.
right? So this again goes down to the point of mercy, and some of them is just bad luck, to be honest.
Yeah.
Some bad luck. So nutshell, I think it's not always bad. It depends on who you are as a person.
It's how the world works, folks, and I think Wally hit the nail on the head. If you happen to fall into a huge amount of money that you didn't necessarily work for, it's most likely that you've not built up the financial mentality and capacity to actually manage such a huge amount, and it ends up being spent in very interesting ways. Friendly tip: improve your financial literacy. So if you win the lottery, you stay a winner. Next up, we talked about a popular debate topic in secondary school: being rich versus being happy.
Okay, disclaimer. I hate this question. I actually
It's us,
hate
innit?
I hate the question because, but I want to say it this way, money is a defense. Even the Bible says it, right? Money is a defense, right? Although there's some form of happiness that you can have, like, yes, I could be happy without money, but money does give you access to buy things that makes you
Absolutely,
happy.
man.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
So I know people like to be self-righteous about this and be like, oh, money is better than happiness. You can have all the money in the world and not be happy. Yes, I agree. But the way I am now, I am happy. But if I have more money, I'll be
I'll be
happier.
happier.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Like,
um,
like
yeah.
the thing is, I think some people, and again, I understand why that happens, but there's
Mm,
many people in the world who have money and are bloody happy, man.
yeah.
Like, it is not happiness is not about the money. It's not.
Mm, mm,
The thing is, like the cliche goes, I rather have, well, not me, but that's what they said. That's what they
yeah.
said. Rather
Yeah.
have money and be in a good place than
Mm,
be poor and still be in the same state.
yeah.
I'm not
Mm,
saying
mm,
I'm,
mm.
and I'm not saying I'll choose wealth and sadness. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying
Yeah.
that money goes a long way to make your life easier. So, I
Yeah.
respect money a lot. I respect money a lot, but
Mm,
I'm not in love with it. Is
mm.
that if that makes sense?
Absolutely.
Enough said on that one. Moving on to the next category of questions. Wally asked me what I would do if I won $1 million. And guys, heads up, I came prepared.
All right. Let's get this.
This guy's a list.
I have a list. I'm ready. I'm ready for you. All right. So first thing, I'll tithe. Firm believer in tithing. So that would happen. Second thing, I'll
What?
put money into I'll tithe 10% tithe to
Oh,
church, to
man.
God.
Fair play,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Cool.
Fair play.
Second point, I'll put money into a retirement plan that has that pays a premium after a certain point in time. But what I'll do is that I'll create a separate account, find out the cost for the premium over like 10 or 15 years, and just set up auto withdrawals to the
You thought
retirement
this
plan.
through, bro.
Bro. If that money comes, bro. Third thing, real estate. And probably something that has to do with student housing, right? I think if there's anything that is consistent, particularly,
By the way, you have $1 million, not 1 billion.
I know, but all these things is financial. They're percentages, right?
Okay,
Regardless
okay,
of how
okay,
much I get, I
okay,
will
okay,
put all
okay.
those things in percentages, right? So, housing, right? Student housing. Because if you think about it, schools are like, student housing is one of the most like overpriced things that you find. I'm sure you can tell
Yeah,
yourself,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
student
yeah.
housing. You
Mad.
understand? So I'll definitely do that. And students always have to pay. Like with the working class person, the person can get away with saying, "Oh my." Blah blah blah. But students, as long as you're in the school, you probably have the money to do what you need to do. So I'll say real estate. I'll probably pick up some U.S. government bonds as well. And that's because it's the global currency that everybody defaults to, right? If you understand, so I'll probably just pick U.S. government bonds as well, and then angel investing, meaning just looking for small businesses because I'm pretty passionate about stuff like that, so I'll do that as well. And then the final part will probably go into like stocks and like index funds. So I'll probably put like maybe 3%, 7% in like index funds that track
So this
like
guy has planned this.
like see well the pandemic also like made me think about this a lot more, because once your earning capacity is gone, these are some of the things that become important. So
Yeah,
like
no,
index yeah, so between index funds and stocks, I'll probably split it like 7 to 3%. So 7% to index funds. So index funds track the top like 500 or 10, 20 best companies, and just you mark that, and then I can play around with picking maybe personal stocks myself.
okay.
But
The money has
yeah,
finished. Hold on, pause. The money
it
has
has
finished.
finished. Yeah, I know, but that's my
Question
answer.
I'll ask you, yeah. What would you do with $1 million if you got $1 million, but you cannot spend it on yourself? But you can't spend it on yourself or your family or friends. What
Um, I'd give a lot to like churches and charities and to causes that I care about. Because if there's one thing I've noticed, to be honest, like even if, although you can, if you don't spend money directly on yourself, if you spend it on something that brings you some form of happiness and joy, um, it's not the same, but it's close enough to you spending money on yourself. I'd even argue sometimes it's a bit better, like just sometimes, right? So I think if I couldn't spend it on myself, it would just be to a lot of causes that I'm passionate about, right? Education for one, and things that might have secondary or derivative benefits to me, right? Like just public things that I can still sort of benefit from in a way as well. But that would even be the reason I'm doing it. But it would just be causes that I care about. But spotlight on you, please. Plan for $1
Me,
million
if I got
for
$1 million
yourself.
for
Yeah, for
myself,
yourself. Yeah, first.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. You give me answers that are like, yo, my answers are definitely crap at this point because you're just like giving me lists like bullet points. I'll definitely invest. I don't know
Yeah.
what. I'll definitely do some investments. I
Mm.
think I would. I'll my folks' retirement cover that.
Absolutely.
What else? I'm not too sure. To be honest, I think I'm somebody who every day I wake up, I'm a new person. So if that happens to me, really, I swear to God, I'll probably deep think it for like 1 month because I everything just said like I'm like, yo, I don't even know if I'll do that if I get the money. But if I'm on myself,
Yeah.
I think I'll definitely build a school or schools. I think I think that would be my number one thing. And I think the school that will build will not be schools. It will be schools of certain philosophy, not
Mm.
the education school, but I want to build like a
Schools of life.
school of
Schools
life,
of life. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not I'm Socrates guy, far from it, no.
Mm.
But there's always a saying that you don't have to be the best, you can hire the best, right?
Mm.
So I
Mm.
feel like I'll build schools for young kids, young Black African kids, because
Yeah.
I think, and this is also from my experience as well. I think for a lot of us, our idea of excellence is always outside our
Yeah.
community,
Yeah.
and I feel like it'd be good if our kids, teenagers, gonna know that we can build excellence in house, you
Mm.
know, build excellence in house,
Yeah.
because that idea that once no more Black, once no more Nigerian, you've made it.
Mm.
It's all, and I don't want to put classical conditioning, but it is conditioning. But anyway, I think I would build a school for that because school is very important. School is very important, and maybe a bank because like you said, causes that I'm passionate about, particularly small
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah.
So I definitely would like to have something that will be a safe haven for people to start small businesses because I feel like small
Yeah.
businesses help run the world a lot. But obviously, with the giants of the world, they want to kill them
Yeah.
all. They will not have their way. It's just
Yeah.
um,
Finally, we found a bit of time to talk about an investment and savings culture. We also threw in a bonus segment about cryptocurrency, speculation, and capital gains.
In terms of like building a savings and investment culture, I think one thing we usually forget to mention a lot is budgeting, right? Show of hands, how many people when you receive like before you receive like any income, you kind of like make a budget, like proper budget.
oh no,
I
sorry, not me, not me, not me.
okay. I
I
do
thought you were
like
going to say that. I'm sure of hand if you before you receive money, you've thought about how you spend it. I was like, yeah, me.
Yeah. No, people think everybody kind of like thinks about what they want to spend money on. But I think we usually overlook the fact that like budgeting is actually the first step, to be honest. Like,
Mm.
and what I practice really is, I earmark certain things. Even if I spend money on myself, there's certain things that already have like buckets of funds that they need to go into already. Right. And that makes it like it gives me the headspace. Like I'm not thinking about it anymore. Like I know every month like this goes here, this goes here. The
Yeah,
rest of this is what I have, right? Once you get that all sorted, right? I think that's when you can start to look at like investments and things like that. But if you don't have a budget that you follow, if I can point to you or in 1 month and you tell me, oh yeah, this is how much I'm going to spend, save X and like save some differentials that might happen based on emergencies, it's hard to really start to invest in, because like you said, you can only start to invest when there's like disposable income to play around with, and you
Yeah,
only know what's disposable income if you have a budget set up already, right?
yeah,
If not, you end up like you end if you end up investing in things and you lack the patience to wait for it because you've used money that you cannot spare,
yeah.
right? You understand? And so I think definitely budgeting first and building a savings culture is pretty important. Someone threw in a random question here, but what do you think about cryptocurrency? It's, I guess, millennial financial literacy time. So
So crypto, yeah. I mean, so obviously, okay. For example, like my research, I know I spoke
yeah,
to some IT leaders in the UK, and and one of them told me like, "Yo, Wale, go and get your Bitcoin, right? I know it's a bit up and down right now, but go get
yeah,
Bitcoin,
yeah,
right?" And someone else has said it's not needed. It's not needed now because in your context, you could use that money for something else that you get returns pretty earlier.
mm,
Something more safe. So the
yeah,
cryptocurrency, I'll say, my brother, is your gamble,
yeah,
right? If it
yeah,
works out, then you are blessed, right? But the thing is,
yeah,
we don't know when it will work out. So the issue with crypto for me is a temporal dimension,
yeah.
because everything is linked to, yeah, depends
Speculation.
on
Yeah,
regulation,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So crypto is like we're just saying, okay, well, we know that there's manna up in the sky. We're praying
yeah,
for them to release heavens for the manna to drop. Right.
yeah,
And if those regulations don't change, those policies don't change to accommodate crypto in the
yeah,
sense that you can use it, be useful for in your everyday life, because I
yeah.
don't think crypto cannot be valuable to the point where we think it'll be valuable if it doesn't become more accessible to the
Widespread. Yeah, usable.
widespread
Yeah,
use.
that's okay. Fine. Yeah,
So about
yeah,
crypto, I'm still learning about it as myself, but
yeah,
I'm not jumped into it. Some
yeah.
people have, and
So
they've
for
made money. Don't get me wrong, and good for
fair,
them. They
fair.
have the information, and they have
Yeah,
the right channels, but not
yeah.
me.
In terms of capital gains versus passive income, I'm more on the passive income side, because for capital gains, there are people that have like spreadsheets and all these algorithms that are trying to predict all these things. And you're sitting in your house, just praying that the thing goes up, right? So you in the game of speculation, those that have not enough information are the ones that fund the speculation itself, right? They're the losers basically. So if you don't have enough information, you can't bank on speculation, is what I would say. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
And here's a final thought from Wally.
Interesting. I've learned some things here. I think
Yeah.
my overall wrap up is, even me myself as an individual, I am still learning how to make better use of money on a daily
Mm,
basis. I'm still
yeah.
not at the point where I think I can be. I think I'm still learning. I think I don't learn fast as well.
Mm,
Um, I think the point is just also trying to understand where you are in life and be realistic
yeah.
with yourself.
So there you have it, a review of the second episode of 20's Convos with Wally and Toby. If you liked it, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, leave comments below, follow-up questions, anything. But till next time, take care and stay safe.